Serious, Redditors who have gotten kidnapped before, what happened and how did you escape? You/Polysocum responded. I was 24 and coming home around 3 a.m. one night from being the designated driver. I parked outside my apartment and a man with a gun approaches as I am getting out of the car. He forces me back in and yells at me to climb over into the passenger seat. I am a blubbering mess at this point and just know I am going to die. He drives me to an ATM and wants me to get him some cash. I had $4 in my bank account, so he was pretty pissed. He starts driving around and I start trying to figure out how to get myself out of the situation. I turn in my seat toward him and start trying to talk to him, even touching him on the arm so he might start seeing me as another human. While I am doing this, I reach up behind and unlock the door. Eventually he comes to a stop, a red light. I notice a car has pulled up behind us and I throw open the door and jump out. He grabs me and my clothes rip, but I get out. He takes off and the people in the car behind me call the cops. A couple months later I have to go to the police station and pick him out of a lineup. I meet 2 other women he did this to and realize I was extremely lucky compared to what they went through. Another year later and I go to trial since my incident had the most evidence. He gets 99 years in prison and won't be eligible for parole until he is 64. Took me a number of years to feel comfortable being out alone at night. I joined an outreach program that went into prisons and that was probably the best therapy I could have ever gotten. I am happy to say that event does not plague me any longer and I have forgiven the man who did it. You/Deleted responded. Last summer, I went to Walmart around 1 a.m. on a Sunday night. I work night shift so I was fairly comfortable but still aware of my surroundings. I bought an HDMI cable and a bag of chips and was walking out to my car when a car pulled up to mine. When the guy got out, I just assumed he was going into the store. I unlocked my car and he came around the side. At that point I was a little anxious but just thought he was gonna ask for money or a cigarette. Then I saw his gun. He told me not to say anything and to get in the back seat of his car. He said if I did what he said, he wouldn't hurt me. I got in his car, and he gave the gun to a kid, probably 13 or so, in the passenger seat. The kid held the gun on me while the man took my wallet, phone, and keys. They drove to an ATM and withdrew all the money from my bank account, only about $200 because I'm a broke college kid. They kept talking about whether or not they should kill me or let me go. I convinced them to drop me off as long as I promised not to say anything to the cops. They kept my phone but gave me my wallet and keys back and dropped me off in the ghetto. I walked to a gas station and the cashier called the cops for me. I think they had a hard time believing me because I seemed so calm, but it was the worst night of my life. Not really sure if this counts as a kidnapping, since I was only with them for about 20 minutes, but it sucked. You/Deleted responded. Well, I wasn't kidnapped, but I was babysitting my sister's kids at their house when their father came to pick them up for his weekend custody visit. I put them in the car with him, made sure they had a change of clothes, a toy apiece, and kissed them goodbye. I honestly barely spoke to their father because we already hated each other then. I just said something like, "Be careful with them," and then he left. I locked up and left too. The next day, my sister called me and told me he had just called her from across the Mexican border. He'd taken the kids, without any documentation whatsoever, across, and was on his way to central Mexico, where his parents live. That prompted a really miserable 2 years of researching and trying a lot of things, both legal and some not so much, to get them back. Short story, it's very difficult to extract internationally kidnapped kids from Mexico, especially when one's own country's systems are so broken and flawed. Anyway, after 2 years, my sister managed to get them back quasi-legally, more on that, if someone's interested, and I was very happy to get to go with her on that trip. I don't get to see them much now since they moved out of state, but the crippling depression and despair that I was the one who inadvertently allowed them to be kidnapped has eased a bit. They're doing pretty well. The kids are in school and they seem to have reacclimated to US culture well enough. They were treated very poorly in Mexico, beaten, starved, and not allowed to go to the doctor, so they both have a few ongoing health issues, but they are and have been treated for a lot of that. You/I got a share responded. I got pushed into a car in London and held for 14 hours in a car that had been stripped of much of its internal paneling with a door that could only be opened from outside. I don't really know what his intentions were, but he was going through a pretty serious crisis. He told me how his wife had left him after revealing how neither of his 2 children were his. He was unemployed and evidently addicted to crack cocaine. For 14 hours, he shared many of his fears and problems along with a desire to end it. As the time passed, I became a little impatient as I had a plane to catch, but soon abandoned such hope after he started shouting and stabbing the dashboard with a 10-inch screwdriver because I wasn't listening. Through all of this, I recognized a man at the end of his rope that needed someone to talk to. Although terrified at some points, I calmed myself by believing that I could get through it if I could keep him calm and see me as a friend, albeit one that needed to go home. Eventually, the sun rose, the drugs ran out and wore off, and he had shared all he could. I encouraged him to speak with his family and try to seek legal advice. I gave him my email address and he opened the door and I found my way to the tube station. I don't know how things turned out for him. He never contacted me. U/EEK0013 responded. Technically both my brothers and I were kidnapped by our dad when I was 9. My parents were going through a nasty divorce and my dad had us for a trip in Vermont. He asks us if we wanted to see Canada and all of us being under 9 and thinking it's cool are totally down for it. Here's where it gets fucked up a little bit. None of us had passports except for our dad. We pull up to the Canadian border and the border agent asks my dad all these questions, like where is the children's mother, what are your plans, etc. Somehow he's allowed through and we spend the day in Canada. Come back to the American border and the border agent jokes with us and lets us through even though there's 3 children with no American passports. My mom finds out from us later and loses her shit. Apparently it's a kidnapping if you take children to another country during an intense divorce without the other parent present. My brother also almost got kidnapped when walking home from school. A group of friends find an injured squirrel. A random guy in a van pulls up and offers to take it to the vet and asked if anyone wanted to go with him. My brother said no because it would have taken too long and just walked off. His stupid luck saved him from being kidnapped. U/Katyalina responded. On a business trip. I called an Uber. Car pulls up, says it's my Uber. A lot of my Uber cars same week did not have the sticker on it, so I thought nothing of it. I'm also really used to using Lyft, but this city didn't have hardly any Lyft usage. So, when I saw multiple PPL in the car, IHSD been drinking, assumed it was a split fare like you can do with Lyft. Well, it wasn't. Realized when they pulled a knife. They demanded for me to do weird tasks, like buy them alcohol and cigs, and drove me around for hours. Stole my debit cards and SS card. Finally dropped me off after they had my cards. I walked back to my hotel. Was stunned. Didn't quite know what to do or say. I just thought LD been robbed. I wasn't even using the words kidnapping. But when I went to the police station, that is when they labeled it as a second-degree kidnapping charge. I'm a survivor of rape from 2008. And LV been to therapy for that. But this has brought my PTSD back like a motherfucker. I had to go back to therapy and get a psychiatrist because I couldn't sleep at night for months. They also caught one of the kidnappers from video, so I'll have to go back to testify because they're pleading not guilty. I would provide more info, but it's an active case still, I guess. It was pretty fucking scary, but I think being compliant got me safe. U/deleted responded. First time I was a baby in a pram and my mom told my brother to watch me while she set up at the local laundromat. Soon after, a woman in a veil came while my brother was distracted looking in a shop window and quietly picked me up and started walking down the street with me. My brother quickly saw and ran to my mom, who shouted, "Let go of my baby," to which she opened her arms and let me fall to the concrete and ran off. Second time, there was an infamous guy in the town kids called the Drunk Man who was arrested periodically for unknown reasons. He even started jumping on my mom's car on a raining night when she parked up on the street with her inside. On day I was out the front as a kid and I turned around, and about 10 to 15 feet away at the opened gate he was standing there in a long coat just staring at me like he just appeared. He did the finger signal to come here and I shook my head. He then let out a frustrated sound and expression and reached into his pocket for a cellophane wrapped bag of sweets and did it again. I shook my head again out of fear of him in general. He did the frustrated action again and began to walk down the drive, to which I banged like crazy on the front door and my dad came out, and when I turned around he was out of sight. Third time I was a bit older, like 9 to 10, and I was running around a housing area playing a game with a couple friends when a creep showed up at his front door. The second to third time I went around that way with his shirt off looking fat as hell. He was saying to me in a withering voice, "Oh hello, do you want to come inside?" No? I have lots of sweeties. At that age I kind of just laughed and made fun of him and ran off. Obviously I knew there was danger and to be avoided, but it didn't hit me what actually was going on until later on. I never talked to anyone about it. Not that it's traumatizing or anything, it just never crosses my mind or comes up. U/Sancha X Illinois responded. I was almost kidnapped when I was 8 or 9. We were staying in a hotel in Los Angeles, and one afternoon my sister and I were playing in the courtyard, and I noticed a tall Asian man watching us not far away, with a friendly, in retrospect, creepy, grin on his face. We thought nothing of it. The next day, I walked down to the hotel store to get some candy, and the guy came out of nowhere, said I looked lost and scooped me up. He was quiet, calm and friendly, so I thought nothing of it. He carried me back to his hotel room, locked the door and showed me to his roommate, who looked very excited at my presence. I was totally naive, and more shy than afraid. They offered me food, sweet bread, I think, and I asked if they had anything else. He looked away, and I had the door unlocked and open, and I was gone in a flash. I called back that I had to get back to my parents, and that was it. Never saw either of them again. A year or so later, we had stranger danger seminars at school. I watched a mock-up of a similar scenario play out in a video about kidnappings and touching, and it slowly dawned on me. Oh, I said to myself. Oh, ooh. I told my parents and they didn't believe me. A couple years later, Mom brought it up and asked if I was telling the truth. I said yes. She just went quiet, and I think a little disappointed in herself. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive even deeper into our community, consider becoming a channel member. Members get exclusive perks like early access to videos, custom emojis, shoutouts, etc. And it's a great way to support the channel so I can keep bringing you the content you love.